Why do you think so many of your people on your side of the aisle, Larry Summers or Jason Furman, or take your pick, do you think that the number of votes garnered in November, does that make up for the pushback you're getting from people that would normally be allies?
So look, I mean, I've tried to listen to pretty carefully to what Jason and Larry have been talking about. I don't remember them talking about basically saying that the deficit reduction that we've been talking about is anything different than what I've been describing. The idea that way more deficit reduction than the cost of the relief plan, I think that's consistent with everything that Jason and Larry have talked about. I've heard them where they and I are on different sides of this, is they've argued that this will be inflationary. You know, we've cited Goldman Sachs analysis, many other economists saying that, in fact, if you look at the expenditures from the debt forgiveness, they look to us to be about the same magnitude as the restart, which also begins in January. And so one is cooling on the economy, and it offsets the other. Now, one of the things that Jason has pointed out, and he's right, is that you can't take credit for anything that's in the baseline. And we don't do that in our accounting when it comes to the deficit and the debt. What I just described to you, 1.7 trillion deficit reduction, 240 billion on debt forgiveness, those numbers don't play any baseline games of the type that Jason has correctly warned us against. But when it comes to inflation, it is definitely relevant that the cooling force of people restarting paying their loans offsets any inflationary impact from forgiveness.
Jared, Jason even pointed out that, and others, many others, and to have to push back on the guys that are, they want to be on your side. I know Larry would like to back your programs. I know that Jason would like to back. I haven't even brought up what the other side has said about all these things. I mean, that's just vociferously against almost all these things. But in the IRA, and I have a problem with even calling it that, the Inflation Reduction Act, you point to, because you raise taxes, you point to some deficit reduction. This eats up all of that deficit reduction and then adds another, nobody knows, but probably at least another $300 billion onto it. So it's, like I said, just to mollify or appease the far left progressives and maybe get a few votes. Do you really think that it's worth it politically to have done this?
I think the thing that's missing from our conversation that's really very germane to it is who benefits, not just from the Inflation Reduction Act, which is showing up there, but is from student debt forgiveness and the new income-driven repayment plan going forward. If you just look at the cost, which is what you focus on so far, and you don't look at the other side of the equation, then you're going to get into some screwy politics of the type you just mentioned. In fact, if we look at polling, it is student debt forgiveness is supported by significant majority. So it's not just the far progressive left. There are over 40 million people who are going to get debt relief. And going forward, tens of million people will benefit from a much better plan, our income-driven repayment plan that significantly reduces the burden of paying for forthcoming college debt. Now, because the student debt forgiveness has an extra bump, an extra $10,000 for Pell recipients, 75% of the beneficiaries of this were, in fact, Pell recipients, and they have incomes that are typically below $60,000. And that's one of the reasons why almost 90% of the benefits goes to families, goes to individuals with incomes under $75,000. Now, if you compare who we're helping, say, to the Trump tax cuts, you find numbers like the Penn Wharton folks showed that 75% of the benefits of debt forgiveness go to the bottom 60% of households. If you look at the Trump tax cuts, 20% of the benefits went to the bottom 60%. So I think one of the reasons why this is as popular as it is not because it's catering to any part of the far left, as you suggested, but because it's helping people who really need some help, some breathing room.
There's states, there are 60-70% of the people didn't go to college, and they're working their butts off, and now they're going to pay for a guy going to Harvard graduate school. You've heard that. Plumbers and FedEx guys are going to pay for Ivy League advanced degrees.
Okay, I'm glad you raised that, Joe. Hold on.
I'm going to have to bring you back at 7, and you know what? People aren't going to believe me.
No. Wait, I can't leave you with that. I can't leave you with that. Listen,
right.
here, Contrary to
blow through a break.
I'm quoting Professor Sue Donarski. Contrary to the popular narrative, the huge run-up in defaults has not been driven by 100,000 debts incurred by students at expensive private colleges. Rather, they are driven by $8,000 loans from for-profit colleges. The benefits of student debt relief do not go to the type of person you just cited. They go very much to those at the lower end.
You definitely need to push back on that one, because that's a very
important fact
everywhere.
check.
It's in the Wall Street Journal. It's all over the place. All right, Jared.
One last point. 0% of these benefits go to the top 5%. 0%.